In the distant reaches of space, where stars flickered like ancient beacons, a message was intercepted, a faint cry for help. It was a distress signal from a once great alien civilization, the Zethar. For centuries they had roamed the stars, their empire vast and their technology unrivaled. Yet now they were on the brink of collapse, their once mighty fleet shattered, their planet ravaged by an unknown force. The Zethar, in a final act of desperation, sent a message to a distant species they had long observed, humanity. The message was simple, barely coherent, yet filled with urgency. Requesting immediate aid. Destruction imminent. Fleet failure. Send help. Back on Earth, the message was received with a sense of confusion and cautious optimism. The leaders of the United Nations convened in a high-tech war room, their faces a mix of disbelief and curiosity. The humans had been growing in power, rapidly advancing in technology and space exploration, but their reputation as a species was far from stellar. They had fought countless wars among themselves, ravaged their own planet, and were known for their unpredictability. Yet, the Zythar's plea for help could not be ignored. The decision was made quickly. A fleet would be sent to aid the alien civilization, but given the uncertainty of the situation, it would be the weakest fleet in humanity's arsenal. The reason was clear: humanity wasn't yet ready to risk everything. Their space program was still in its infancy compared to the galaxy's more advanced species. The fleet chosen for the mission consisted of old ships, barely holding together, and crews that were considered the bottom of the barrel by military standards. They were young, inexperienced, and lacked the discipline that would typically be expected in times of war. This fleet was humanity's weakest, sent not because they were incapable, but because they were expendable. The fleet, consisting of just 10 ships, set out from Earth. The vessels were rusty, their hulls marred by years of neglect. The crew was a mix of soldiers, engineers, and civilians who had volunteered for the mission, most of them having no idea what they were about to face. The journey took several months. As they crossed the void, the fleet's commander, Captain Arlo Jackson, found himself constantly questioning the decision. He had seen the records of the Zethar, their technology, their strength. How could humanity, with its paltry fleet, offer any real assistance to a species on the verge of extinction? "Look at these ships," Jackson muttered, staring at the dilapidated vessels around him. "We're sending them to fight the unknown with nothing but scraps and hope." His first officer, Lieutenant Nora Simmons, stood beside him, arms crossed. She was as doubtful as he was, but kept her reservations to herself. The uncertainty gnawed at her. "Maybe it's not about the ships," she said quietly. "Maybe it's about the humans on board." Jackson turned to face her. "What do you mean?" Simmons gave a wry smile. "We may not have the most advanced technology, but we've got something no one else seems to have: grit. A willingness to push forward when all seems lost. When everyone else has given up, we fight. That's why they sent us." Jackson nodded, though he wasn't convinced. The fleet would reach the Zethar system in 3 days, and what awaited them there was anyone's guess. When they arrived at the Zethar homeworld, the situation was far worse than anyone had imagined. The once immense planet was now a desolate wasteland, its surface scarred by violent storms and destructive waves of energy. The Zythar's massive cities were now empty, their spires twisted and broken. Orbiting the planet was a dark mass, a colossal enemy ship that seemed to devour the light around it. It was clear that the Zethar's pleas had been genuine. They had underestimated the true nature of the threat. Captain Jackson issued the order to prepare for battle. The fleet of human ships, despite their outdated weapons and aged hulls, moved into position. They were a meager force, but they would have to do. "We'll hit them hard and fast," Jackson said, his voice steadier than he felt. "No one else is coming. It's up to us." As the fleet approached the enemy ship, a low hum filled the communication channels. The Zythar's leader, a pale, thin being named Carex, appeared on the screen. His face was gaunt, his voice weak. "Human fleet, thank you for coming," he said, his tone filled with both gratitude and despair. We thought we were beyond help. Our enemies. They are too powerful for us. We have nothing left," Jackson replied firmly. "We're not here to die. We're here to fight." The alien leader's eyes flickered with something, perhaps a fleeting hope. "Then let us fight together." The human ships engaged, their weak weapons firing at the dark mass in the distance. They were no match for the enemy's colossal power, but what they lacked in strength, they made up for in courage. The ships maneuvered with surprising agility, dodging beams of energy and returning fire with whatever they had. The enemy ship retaliated, its weaponry far superior, but it was distracted by the relentless human assault. As the battle raged on, the Zethar managed to deploy their own small fleet, their ships damaged but still capable of combat. The combined forces of humanity and the Zethar began to turn the tide, not through overwhelming force, but through sheer tenacity. The human fleet was battered and broken, but they kept fighting, refusing to retreat. In the final moments of the battle, Captain Jackson's ship, the Aegis, became the last standing vessel in the fleet. Its systems were failing, the engines sputtering, but the crew pressed on. With one final desperate maneuver, Jackson piloted the Aegis directly into the heart of the enemy ship, crashing into it with an explosive force that sent shockwaves through space. The explosion was enormous, the enemy ship crumbling into debris. The humans had won, not because they were the strongest, but because they were willing to sacrifice everything. They had proven that, even when facing the impossible, humanity's greatest weapon was not its technology, but its unyielding will to survive. As the dust settled, Carex appeared once more on the screen, his face somber but filled with respect. You have saved us," he said. "You are the strongest race we have encountered, not because of your ships, but because of your spirit. Humanity will be remembered as the true giants of the galaxy." Captain Jackson, standing in the wreckage of his command deck, smiled weakly. "We're just getting started." And with that, the humans left their mark on the galaxy, a mark that would echo for centuries to come, not as conquerors, but as survivors who had defied the odds. The universe had learned, for the first time, what it meant to face humanity.